I strategically rented an apartment next to my parking lot where my master bedroom window looked right into the parking lot of where my employees would show up to the building. Every morning that I did get up, I'd look out that window and I'd see people pulling up in that parking lot, building the prime dream, and I just knew I needed to keep going forward.
Steve Harward is the founder and CEO of Prime Corporate Services, a company he built to over 9 figures in annual revenue. No paid advertising, no aggressive sales tactics. Just relationships.
I ran my entire support email for 7 years of the business. 7 years of the business, up to 27 million in annual revenue. I'm running my support email. And so that thing would ding in the middle of the night intentionally. And I knew that if I responded within seconds, where that customer is like, whoa, the CEO's responding within seconds? Like, I'm good. I'll wait till he wakes up and he can handle it, right? If you listen long enough in that conversation, they're going to share with you the things that are the most important to them. They're going to speak up. They're going to get louder. They're going to lean in, find a way to serve me around that. You're going to get a lot more of me a lot faster. I'm working harder today, Tuesday morning, than I ever have in any of the business. If you look at, the algorithm in my phone, I'll be like, are you broke? What are you obsessing like this? And it's because I understand the power of momentum. I have a lot of people around here that have made my dreams come true. My responsibility, obligation, and job is to reversely make theirs come true. I know right where it is, and it's the one that gives me the most deepest emotional connection as well. And so I'll tell the backstory, and it's also a way of me honoring this individual because he means so much to me. The gentleman's name is Randy Garn, and Randy is.
Welcome back to the fifth quarter. Quiet moves, deep minds, game-changing conversations. Most entrepreneurs are told you need aggressive sales, paid ads, and constant deal making to scale. But today's guest did the opposite. Steve Harward is the founder and CEO of Prime Corporate Services, a company he built to over 9 figures in annual revenue. No paid advertising, no aggressive sales tactics, just relationships. The philosophy behind how he did it might be the most misunderstood growth strategy in business. Steve, welcome to the fifth quarter.
Wow, we're here. We made it. We did it.
Yeah, we've been trying to get this podcast going for a while,
Yeah.
And Steve has come in at 6 o'clock in the morning in Utah just to make it happen. And it's going to be an example of what a wonderful human being he is. And there's going to be many of these over the podcast. And before we dive straight into it, Steve is actually an inspiration for the show. He likes to remain extremely low key. He likes to remain behind the scenes, and he doesn't really like to talk too much publicly about what he's achieved and how he's done it. And for me, I was always very conscious about shining a light on more of these entrepreneurs. And, as soon as I came up with the idea for the show through people like him, it was very important that he was one of my first few guests. And Steve, I know that you don't do these things often, and it means a lot that you're here. Like I said, man, really happy to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, dude. It's an honor to be here. And just, again, there's not very many people. I'm getting up at 5 a.m., coming in, doing something I don't do very often, but I do it 5 days in a row for you. And I'm excited to have this conversation.
Steve, you built a 9-figure plus company on a philosophy called win by giving. Where did that actually come from?
I think it's an evolution. One, I'll say, I think it's a living, breathing organism that constantly has new movement, the new shape that's taking place always for me. But I think the base of it, I've tried to really think where it came from, how it started. And honestly, I think it started as a little boy. I think watching my mother specifically give the way she gave as a single mom, raising 3 boys, going through all that she went through. I think that did something to me more than I thought it did to me at the time, right? And so I think that's kind of the epicenter of it is watching that, feeling that, being in that. And then as I progressed through life, progressed through school, progressed into business, it carried forward. And, Prime Corporate Services, you mentioned, we're a business that's built on partnerships and built on relationships. And like any good business owner or any good strategist or any good anybody that wants to be the best at their craft, you're constantly kind of pushing the limits. You're constantly saying, how can I get a little bit better? And, further down the road with Prime, it started unlocking where I'm like, man, I got these partnerships. I got these relationships. They make money. I make money. Their customers are happy, but there's got to be more here. There's got to be something else that can continue to unlock this in a deeper way. How do I get to more important people? And more importantly, how do I feel better and make them feel better about how I get closer with them to partner deeper with them? And I think as that started to kind of happen, just these ideas of these different ways of giving and adding value, and then giving without expectation, and like any good muscle does, when you continue to use it, it just became inherent. It just became something that was natural to me. It became a scavenger hunt for me in some way that like fulfilled me to unlock these different ways that I could get these relationships that would go from, sometimes, and you know this, Bilal, like sometimes relationships take years, right? For the true development of trust and understanding. And like, I got your true back. Like I got your six, right? Like I got your back. And I found that if you can showcase sincerity without expectation faster to the right people recognize that. And the way you can reciprocate to each other, you can just 10x the movement in a compressed amount of time, because trust is a living part of what's in between you and that other individual.
Was there a specific moment or a person that shaped that belief? I know you mentioned your mother, but when you look back now, having built the business the way that you've done, and you're like, where did this come from? Yes, it came, inherently made from your mother, but was there a specific instance which shaped that identity for you?
Yeah,
or a person?
Yeah, I've thought about that, and I need to probably spend some more time, because I don't have one that jumps out at me. I will tell you, in business in general, an area that felt like a beginning stage was just as I was growing the business, I learned who is the best at different things, and then as I created these partnerships, it was really fun for me at a minimum to just make connections and relationships and make introductions to other people that had the best process for whoever I was talking to and building a relationship with, right? I mean, I think sometimes people in business can get hung up on like, is that what's the ROI in that? What's the second tier opportunity for me? And I think early on with Prime specifically, I was like, man, I think I got the best merchant provider. Man, I got the best, ads guy. I got the best high ticket phone sales guy. It's like, I know they're the best because I'm working with them on other brands, and then I'm building these new relationships, and the question comes up. It's like, man, how do I just make a connection? How does somebody make an insinuation of needing something in their business, and I could find a way to serve them and make an introduction for them to the best in the world before our conversation's even over?
And, for people listening to this, win by giving sounds very abstract, right? And it sounds very fairy tale, like, almost like, well, how do you scale a company through this philosophy? Or if I'm starting a business at the moment, how do I even have time to spend my time focused on doing that? And so what does win by giving actually look like on a Tuesday morning inside of Prime for you?
Yeah, there's I'll actually throw it back at you for a second. You said something to me one time, man, and it's a massive part of why our relationship will just continue to go. I think if people measured us when we're with each other and when we communicate, you're like, dude, you guys are already at 10 out of 10. Like, it can't go anymore. And somehow it continues to go more. But you said something to me. You said, man, there's mornings that I wake and I think about your business before I think about mine. And, when I think about another human, I think about another man, I think about another provider for his family and your goals and your dreams. And that's something that's coming out of your mouth and coming out of your heart, and your actions back it. Naturally, you just, again, you want to reciprocate in a big way for that other person. And so for a Tuesday morning, right? Like, and for this specific Tuesday morning and coming in here, I just was, dude, I so excited to be sitting with you, dude. We've shared some incredible conversations. We've gone deep on some very hard things, and to be in here to support something that you're doing that inspired from some of our conversations. It's pretty cool, man. But it's when you got a big business too, I think I'll also say, like, Tuesday morning for me, you're thinking a lot about your people, right? You think a lot about the employees. You think about, these individuals that show up day in and day out, and they spend 8 to 10 hours of their life building your dream, right? And so for me, I'm always thinking like, well, and I can't get to everybody all the time. Obviously, I can't connect with all my employees at this point with the size of where we're at, but there's definitely, 1-2 people a day that I can impact. And so one of the things that I do have a lot of both gratitude and thought with is, once I'm incorporating myself in the office and getting going for a Tuesday morning, it's how do I show my gratitude back to the team and the people around me that are rowing this boat in that direction.
Amazing. I sense that a lot of people struggle with this philosophy because I think humans typically are very protective in nature about getting hurt, right? Not being treated the way that they treat others. I think it's a very difficult place to give without any expectation, without nothing in return. I think is actually contrary to human nature,
Mm-mm.
right?
Mm.
Um, and you have done this significantly. You know, you've done it more than most people that I know, and I know a lot of very kind, exceptional human beings, and you still shine brightest even out of those people, right? And so I have a two-part question. Is one, has this philosophy ever made you feel like an outlier in the business world where things are so transactional, where you do so much, Steve, for so many people that it's probably almost impossible to ever have it reciprocated the same way that you give it back at the scale that you give it back? And so has that ever made you feel isolated a little bit?
Yeah, I think there's probably some moments of it. I think if there is moments of it, it's suppressed and it's quickly forgotten, because of what I'd call the rush that I get by just doing it. You know what I mean? Like I'm in a spot where I feel like because I feel like I've already won past what was probable in my life. It's kind of like you're playing on house's money, right? It's like you've already exceeded the thing. Like if you look at my story, if you go back to my childhood, if you go back to the trailer park, if you go back to, and again, for a lot of you guys that are probably listening, right? You probably have some of these similar stories and these similar moments of, what was probable and what was possible. And I think me lifting off into that what was possible and then surpassing certain milestones that I remember visually telling myself. Like a funny one that I say often is like, I remember when I was like, if I could just have $100,000 in a bank account, a nice truck and a boat in the driveway, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like like visually for years visualizing that on my vision board and visualizing that in my driveway. And it's like, once I get there, I'm good. And then I think once you climb through that and you excel past it, like it's not hard. It's easy. And I also have prided myself, honestly, on this win by giving stuff, on this relationship business. And now that I have found a way to lean into it, right? Which at times it felt, especially with this stuff, man, like so many of the things that I've done and the stories and the moments, and we can talk about some examples and go through it. Like, I didn't do these things to talk about the stories of how I did those things. I did those things for me. I did those things for the relationship that I was building. And so I've battled a little bit with the fact that, like, how do I talk about this more? How do I express this more? How do I share this more? But the moment that I've started doing it, the little bit that I've done it, what I have found for the right people, and you being exactly one of those individuals, it unlocks where it's like, holy cow, now it starts happening around you, right? The movement starts taking place in a bigger way, right? It's what you messaged me this morning. It's like, man, you gotta teach, you gotta share, you gotta show. And if you do that, other people can apply those things. And so I think, yeah, there may be components and pockets that are more transactional than not. But I think because I've exceeded past what I ever expected I ever would, and I already win even if there isn't anything in it. Like when you measure me, like this is going to sound, I mean, I guess I don't know how this will sound, but I feel like if you could plug me into a computer and you could measure my serotonin, my dopamine, my oxytocin, like everything chemical wise inside of me that drives joy, happiness, and connection while I'm doing some of these things that I like to do, even if no benefit comes, I already won because of the joy that I had doing it.
Yeah.
And so when you really start to unpack that and you really start like thinking about like, that's a subset of my life, that's a subset of my day, that's a subset that carries through my day when these moments happen. And so I think it's a give back to say thank you, universe, for even giving me this opportunity to sit in this warm office, right? Because there was a time in my life a warm office wasn't part of my plan. But then, as you share more of it and people like yourself and others and standing on these stages and writing my book and all the concepts that are coming out, there's nothing that's more exciting to me than a text message from somebody being like, hey man, like I heard your concept and here's what I did. And by the way, like this is how it felt. And this is what I was willing to do without the expectation of something in return. And then you just let God, karma, and the universe do the rest of the work, man.
Yeah, beautiful. A lot of people see that you do this and not a lot of people follow suit, right? So they see, here's a successful man. who is growing his company in a completely opposite way to me.
Mm.
I don't do what he does. Why do you think more people don't do it? Or what do you think founders completely misunderstand about this philosophy?
I think it's what you said. I think that the in nature aspect of building business is just it's transactional, right? I mean, when we think about as we're children or as we're growing up and we're figuring out our way in life, like everything is a transaction, right? I mean, mom gives you $1, you go into the gas station, you exchange, you get a candy bar, and you exchange. You go to the gas station, you swipe your credit card, you put $30 in gas, you get gas for $30. Like I think when you look at just the patterns around constantly everything you're just doing is a transaction. It's a change. It's an exchange of value. It's a barter, right? And so I think that becomes, very much just ingrained of how we operate and how our operating system thinks and processes. And so I think going outside of holidays or it's Christmas, you got to give somebody a gift, right? It's kind of like that's like the thing. It's like that's what you're supposed to do, right? And so then I think you upline into business. And honestly, Bilal, I mean, I'll be very blunt in this when I say this. I think if there's a spot in business I dislike, it's the sharkish business aspect of it that it's supposed to be for it to continue to be, or for what we've perceived it to be successful in business. And I know it needs to be there, by the way. Like I know negotiations and working out a deal and partnering and like thinking, how do you get a better end of the deal? And, what's the value that you bring for the value that you get? And there's a constant kind of nuance, if you will, that happens around it. I transparently, like, I don't like it. It's like, it makes me uncomfortable. It's like, oh, Bilal, you can be a partner and I got this and you can do this. And then we got to get into the weeds of the negotiation of it. And I'm like, can we just like go smoke a cigar in the middle of the desert and like have a conversation over some drink? You know what I mean? Like, how do we get that done without that needing to be there? Again, now I don't want to also dismiss that. I know it needs to be there. I know it's part of what it is, but to answer your question in a long-winded way is like, I think that's the spot that like kind of grabs people and then it holds you there. And then it's constantly, and then you get a couple people that do you wrong or do you dirty, or you go home at night and you're resentful to something where you're like, man, I was taken advantage of, so I'm never going to let that happen again. And to never let that happen again, I put up more blockers, and all of a sudden you're like down this dark rabbit hole and you're like looking around and you're like, oh shit, like this is cool. Like I'm in business. I got a business. I'm making money, but like it's me and the dirt walls, there's no love around you. So
yeah, 100%, 100%. It was interesting because the other day, someone was having difficulties closing a deal in our company. And so I called the guy and I said, life's really short. I want your family to win and I want you to win. And I assume that you would want the same thing for me. But if you don't, it's okay. We can walk away from each other. But I just want to know what's the thing that's going to put a smile on your face. Just tell me what that is. And as soon as like I just said that out loud in a way which no one's probably ever spoken to this guy before, right? Everyone's going back over email, really professional, really not human, right? As soon as I did that, he's like, man, I just want to make this. I'm like, great, let's just commit to that. I'm happy with that. You're happy with that. Deal done. 3 weeks worth of conversation just led to this one point of just saying that one thing, just humanizing it, just showing some love, And so to your point, I think everyone just feels that that's the way it has to be done because they're conditioned to be that way. But actually, if you just throw a little pattern interrupts, I'm like, dude, I love you, man. Like, life's hot. Running a business is difficult. You probably go out every day to war for your family and your employees, and I know what that feels like because I do the same. How can we both just be on the same side? Like, all of a sudden, all those barriers just drop, and you just enter into a negotiation, right? Which doesn't even feel like one because now you're both just trying to optimize for each other's benefit, And so, I think absolutely, man. Those are the favorite kind of deals to do: sitting in the desert, smoking a cigar, and figuring out what can we do together.
Those are the ones
we will find it.
Yeah, like and we also don't forget them, right? Like I haven't not thought about that every time I'm messaging and talking to you. Like I have plenty of business conversations and times and moments where I'm like, I do sometimes 15 a day. I ain't remembering those 15 a day like I'm remembering the time that I have with you. Now, you and I have a special bond and there's a love and a respect, and regardless business, our friendship lives on, that's there. But that's come from what it is that we're talking about. That's come from you being also like, again, I'll go on record and tell everybody this to highlight you for a sec. It's like being the one that's typically the one that's always the one doing what I'm referencing and talking about, which again, I enjoy, I win. you're one of very few people that do it in a way that if I was to measure who's winning in the race of reciprocation and true kindness of connections and value in my family, you've outcompeted me in that, dude. And it's hard to accept. But I've also kind of like allowed for it to be because I've just seen what it's done to our relationship.
Mm.
And it's fun to watch you unlock those moments. It's fun to watch me land in Dubai, in your world, and have you have all the stuff that you had set up for us, man. And it just we'll forever have a friendship. Our hearts will be full of our connection that'll be there, and the byproduct will be our wallets will be filled by way of the transactions that we do together. And that's the dream, dude. That's like the
Yeah,
dream friendship partnership that you want, because there's just so many lines that will never be crossed, because you both drove from a place of knowing that's the line in the sand and that's the commitment you have to the relationship.
100%, dude. 100%. Prime is a very significant business that you've built, and no business gets to where it gets to, or even exists without challenges
Mm,
and seasons of where it almost didn't make it,
mm,
or you're looking around
mm,
and you're like, is this worth it?
mm.
What did the early days of Prime actually look like? And were there moments where you genuinely thought that it might be over before it even started?
Yeah. Um, you know, I have definitely had many trial and errors, and when you say this also, it's like business is there, but I also, like, in my mind I go to, personal aspects of life as well, because they blend, right? I mean, we all deal with that, right? And so I think sometimes you could be dealing with a significant trial or a significant situation in your personal life that also could put the weight on, is this business going to succeed? And so for me, again, like, this is something publicly I don't talk about. It's something I don't, well, I guess I don't talk publicly very much at all, so maybe I can't reference that. Um, but the moment that comes to mind for you when you share that is, when there was in my relationship, in my marriage, and it was headed down the wrong road, and getting going through a divorce, and a hard time. I have two little boys, young boys, 2 and 3 years old, and when you're building a business, you're having success, you're working your guts out, and then what arguably is the most important thing in your life feels like it's crumbling next to you. You start looking and questioning, like, what should I be doing? Like, do I keep rowing this boat on this business side? Is it going to make a difference? Can I go help that or make that work and save that? And that moment was dark times, man. I mean, I remember moving out of the big house and moved into an apartment. I put a mattress on the floor, and there was mornings where I just didn't even get out of bed. I just did not even get out of bed. I just laid there in like this shock and brokenness of, like, man, like, you work so hard to have what you feel like is everything, right? And for anybody that has family or kids, and you can understand and relate this, like, they're your why, they're your driver, they're your, you know what I mean? There's so much in that pushes you. And so to know that I was losing that piece and it was coming undone for what was the most important thing, I struggled with it. But I will tell you that, one, I wouldn't change it for anything, because the story and how it's continued to go, and as you go forward with anything that's hard, there's an outcome and there's a benefit. And I have the love of my life now in my life, and another little baby boy that was born, and I'm a better dad with my two first children than I would have been the way that I was then. And so it's that blessing in disguise. But I remember waking up in that apartment, man. I strategically rented an apartment next to my parking lot of where my business was located, where my master bedroom window looked right into the parking lot of where my employees would show up to the building. And that was strategic, right? And I knew in my thoughts, I was like, man, like, do I walk away from this? Do I quit? Um, I can't do this. I think I need to go put all the energy there. And every morning that I did get up, when at least I needed to help myself to the bathroom, I'd look out that window and I'd see people pulling up in that parking lot, building the prime dream. And I just knew I needed to keep going forward. And so that for me, when you ask the question around something that, did I think when and where, for me personally in the business, it was a heavy moment. But I'll go on record and say I won't change it for anything, because it's those hard moments. I know they say it, I know it's kind of like that, get through it and then you can use it, but, like, it's so true. Like, it didn't happen, it didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And I'm better in every category today because of knowing what that feeling was and knowing what I was going through then.
I was going to ask, what kept you in the game, and it sounds like the people. your employees kept you in the game?
The people, man. I started a family business. My older brother was with me. My younger brother was with me. My mother was with me. All that's, you know what I mean? That's the top five right there, dude, that got this thing going, right? And if any of you guys have worked with any family, you know what I'm talking about. It's not easy by any means, but maybe also to give them all a little bit of love. Even my older brother that's not necessarily with the business anymore right now, like, family and blood is thicker than water. And we had our ups and downs, man. Me and my older brother, we had, go to freaking fist blows happening in the office. Employees are like, how is there a UFC match happening right now inside of our office, right? Just going down, right? But again, they were the core, and my little brother is still here today, 13 years later. My mother is still here 13 years later. And it's a big part of the Prime universe of who we are and what we are.
Amazing. What do you think that season cost you that people that are looking at Prime today would never see?
In what way? So when you say that moment of what I just explained, the time frame.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when people are looking, people see the highlights, right? And the show is, I think a lot of the shows focus on those highlights. But for me, it's really important to look back at where things started and came from. And so when they see Steve Harward in his all black outfit with his hat on stage, talking about his philosophy and all the wonderful things you've built and all the wonderful people that you've helped and impacted and driven, it's really easy just to see that, isn't it? It's just this Steve, this family man, successful entrepreneur, has all his ducks in a row, probably just wakes up smelling of gold and whatever, right? Oud from Saudi. But like when you look back at that season now, there was that cost, right? And that cost exists. I think it carries forward. And so what do you think people looking at Prime today would never see?
Yeah, I think it's thousands and thousands of hard moments and hard decisions and late nights, early mornings. Like I don't know. Like, listen, man, I don't have if you talk to me long enough, you're gonna find that like I'm a barely make it through high school guy. I joke often that I would have never made it through high school if my basketball coach wasn't the vice principal that made sure my D's were C's so that I could play in the next basketball game, right? Like, I don't have anything special other than two things, and I've continued. I've started to be more proud about this, but one, I have awareness of observing of what's working, what's not, and making pivots in the direction of what is working, right? And two, what I have that my father gave me, and I'm forever grateful for him for this, is I have work ethic. I'll just outwork you. When you look back at those early days of Prime and you look at those late nights. I mean, I remember it even this morning waking up and it's just pitch dark, 5 a.m. Haven't been up this early for quite a while, right? I remember having my phone sitting next to my bed, attached to my support email. I ran my entire support email for 7 years of the business. 7 years of the business, up to 27 million in annual revenue. I'm running my support email. And so that thing would ding in the middle of the night intentionally, right? Like there was a big action for me knowing that if somebody sent something to the support email, that was a fire, that was a concern. And I knew that if I responded within seconds, I knew that I could actually help that response, the concern depress, where that customer is like, whoa, the CEO's responding within seconds of me sending it? Like, I'm good. I'll wait till he wakes up and he can handle it, right? Same thing with the payroll of the business, that same amount of time. I ran all of that. I blocked my whole Wednesday. And again, I'm not an accounting guy. I'm not a college guy. I'm not an Excel guy. Like, I'm a notebook and I'm a Post-it guy. Like, those are the two things I could do really good, right? But again, to help inspire anybody that's listening to this, is like, you don't necessarily have to be the best talented person in these areas to do it. You just got to find a way to do it. Stay the course long enough and watch the compounding effect happen. And then the minute you do start getting the capital and the ability to ultimately start deploying to hire people, hire the best in the world or the best at that time that you can afford to ultimately take on that responsibility. And that's what I did. But again, to try to answer your question, there was a lot of low moments for sure. That was on the business accounts. When you build a business on partnership, you're volatile in the sense that the partnerships or the relationships can go up and down, and you got to go with it. And some of the hardest times that I wondered if we were going to power forward, because you staff and you grow and you create systems and processes to handle certain things. There's mornings where I woke up and those partnerships are no longer there. It's like, whoa, like 20% of my business just literally went away overnight, right? Like I still have all that staff. I still have all that team. I still have all that people, all those people. It's probably something I don't do very well transparently of, downsizing and or upsizing based upon those things, especially when it comes to people. I like to hold on to them and keep them apart. Luckily, again, we've had an up and to the right most of the time of the business, other than a handful of things throughout. But yeah,
I think that's something that people struggle with as well. Often, I always hear people like, "Hey, as I build, how do I grow my infrastructure in a way where if I lose some of what I've built, I don't lose my infrastructure or I don't hire people with this promise, you know?" And so now that you've spent, how long have you had the company for, Steve?
13 years. August of 2012 is when we started it, and so we're 13 years in business now.
So now, with 13 years experience, and again, you've stated that you're fortunate in the sense that it's been an upward trajectory for the most part, and so it's been easier, I guess, for you to plan ahead. But when you have built teams and then you have lost revenue that those teams came in to support, looking back at it now, like what would your advice be to growing companies about staffing their needs accordingly and what to watch out for?
Yeah, I think you gotta watch the patterns, and almost kind of like build a play for whatever the few scenarios are. Again, like I haven't had, the word forecast hasn't came into my life until about a year ago, right? I wasn't forecasting for anything. I didn't have the KPIs and the details. I just knew if I, again, kept rowing in that direction, something would continue to bless me and happen, and it did. But like, I think forecasting for those things to where you have a playbook that you level up and you speed up and you hire fast, or on the opposite, it's like, okay, here's a downfall, here's a downside, here's the area of the business that hurts, and you downsize and you get back that revenue and back that profit that ultimately is needed. I think a lot of businesses, especially as they get bigger, we've even felt this at times with my business as we've checked things, but I got a great team, is like they can become bloated, right? You can lose track of the invoicing and the software and the cost and the expense and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden you look at those numbers and you're like, whoa, like how are we not profitable this month? Well, you weren't profitable because you weren't paying attention to it. You weren't getting those numbers in front of you early enough. You didn't have a team member that was letting some alarms go off, being like, hey, like this is concerning, right? Because then you're also probably not planning for worst case scenario, right? You have something like that happen and your lead flow stops. Meta makes a change on how you're advertising it. You get an iOS 14 update on your, like, there's things that happen that significantly change businesses. And so it's like, okay, if that's to be true, what happens if we have a 20% downside in this 30-day period, and what then needs to follow in order to be able to do so, right? And it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy by any means, but I think that you gotta be willing to kind of ebb and flow with it. And I think if you also tell that narrative throughout the organization and the company, so that people, I don't want to say aren't surprised, because it's never fun when you got to lay people off or people aren't working out. But I think if that expectation is there, hopefully the dips are also less, because the people that are a part of the boat with you also want to make sure that they're continuing to bridge those gaps, and they double down and help carry you over those gaps.
What do you hire for, Steve? What do you look for when you hire someone?
I'll say that at this point for me, honestly, a lot of the hiring is not me. I'll do a second interview or a third interview. So when I am involved and it's, at a C-suite level of person, what I'm seeing, I'm looking for character. I'm looking for the twinkle in their eye. I'm looking for like fire, right? Like, again, like this is because of the way that I am and the way that I think. I can look at a resume, I can look at the history, but honestly, that doesn't, it's important. And somebody on my team needs to be checking that to make sure what these people are saying they're doing actually, yeah, right. But like, it's funny. We're looking to hire a guy right now, actually, to help Jesse in my CMO bucket. And I made a joke to him when he was sitting in my office. I said, hey, I got 2 go-karts out in the parking lot. You want to go race? Right. And it's like, let me see who you are under pressure. Let me see who you are in a moment of like, how bad do you want to whoop my ass? How bad do you want to beat me? Like, show me fight. Because if you show me fight in one of those interesting, small, non-pressurizing ways, you're going to show me fight in other areas when it comes up. Right. And he had a beautiful answer. He's like, probably at this stage of trying to get higher, I might let you win. But the next time, it's not going to be the case. And I was like, this is my guy, right?
Yeah.
That's the stuff that I'm looking for with the people that are getting put in front of me right now. But I know for the team, again, they're far more detailed than I am on a lot of the hires that we're making throughout the business.
When did you, at what point did you realize Prime was going to become something significant?
It's an interesting question because I'll say this, and this is with so much respect to people that are building and grinding and coming up. And again, we do got a 9-figure business right now with a lot of cool momentum. But like when you say significant, in my mind, with what we've done, with what I know that we're about to do, it still doesn't feel significant. Right. Like, and I don't want to say that in a disrespectful way to push this down. Right. And I want this to, again, everybody listening, I'm 20 years into waking every single day, doing the same exact thing and the same exact obsession, right. And 13 years in this business. So I think at this point I have, I paid my dues to kind of reference to this way. Right. But like, it still has so much potential. I mean, I'll tell my team in different meetings at times where it's like, guys, we've accomplished the most incredible thing. Like we've passed milestones that most people don't. Like I'm going to ask ChatGPT or Google, like how many businesses cross 9 figures? How many businesses cross 9 figures in 13 years? How many businesses cross 9 figures with 15 to 30%, lift year over year that can happen? Like the percentage of it is very unlikely, but in my mind, in my heart, I know more than anybody the relationships and the partnerships that I'm having and the conversations that I'm having and the existing partnerships that we have. And respectfully, I'd say a large portion of the partnerships that I have, we're only 20 to 30% of the way optimized right now on those existing relationships, right? So if you just measure off of that, there's 70% lift available right there just in existing partnerships that we have, right? So that kind of is like a big driver for me, but also kind of like that haunting, you know what I mean? It's like, I haven't capped out the market share of what we can do for the existing partnerships we have. And then you add on top of that, these new rooms that I'm going into, these new enterprise level partnerships that I'm talking to. For us, it's lead flow, right? I mean, the team will field anywhere between 400 to 600 appointments a day is what the team is currently doing on one-on-one phone calls. I have relationships I'm talking to that have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 of our ideal customers a day in their funnels, right? So when you look at 400 appointments a day, 4,000 new customers a day in this potential new partnership, if the math does me right, and I talk to everybody, that's a 10x. That's a 10x on one partnership, right? And so I think that's the piece for me around, when I think about significance. It's also the piece that, like, I think sometimes complacency can set in once you hit these certain levels. And Bilal, I mean, this morning, 6 a.m. in here with you, 5 a.m. I'm up. Like, I think it also becomes, something that you have a choice to let off the gas because of hitting a certain level. And I'll transparently say that I'm working harder today, Tuesday morning, than I ever have in any of the business. Like if you look at my raw calendar, if you look at my actions, if you look at the algorithm in my phone of all the messages and all the things, you'd be like, dude, like, are you broke? What's going on? Like, is the business secretly going into the trenches? Like, what are you obsessing like this for? And it's because, I understand the power of momentum, and we talked about it, dude. I have a lot of people around here that have made my dreams come true. My responsibility, obligation, and job is to reversely make theirs come true.
So it sounds like you've realized that Prime has the ability to be even more significant. Obviously, you've now looked at like, okay, what does my existing clientele look like? How much money am I leaving on the table there? That equation by default results in, an increase. But when you first started the business, right? When you first started the business, you're in uninformed optimism, right? You're moving into informed pessimism. You're starting to get deal flow. What was the moment where you realized, okay, whoa, like this can be a 9-figure company? And let's say it was doing 8 figures. Like from 8 figures to 9 figures is a big jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there that moment? And there doesn't have to be.
Yeah, there was a moment, and the moment was this. It's, I think what most business owners can do, or at least what I did, is I refer to them as I had goggles on. I had blinders on. Like, I found a little subset of business. I found a little cohort of business. I found these sales floors that I was working with and I had these partnerships with. And there was a small, group of them. And once I kind of maximized it, I kind of tapped it out. I kind of had those relationships. I started looking around of like, what part of the forest do I got to go in? Where else do I got to go? Where else do I got, how do I leave this comfort zone? How do I take these goggles off? How do I look? Like, I just do the raw math of like how many, for us, business entities are formed every day. How many new entrepreneurs are out there? What's the new markets that are coming? And I think I started becoming more aware that there is just so much more out there, but I got to go explore, and I got to go explore and be confident. And to be frank and clear, it was masterminds. It was masterminds. It was me identifying that there was these other groups of people that were out there that had funnels and offers and back end and services. And I went from, again, this small cohort of just limited people to these masterminds where there was 200, 300, 400 people at a time that was at these one locations at these one events that were collaborating. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like, I have 7 companies that I work with that are Salesforce that partner with me. And I just went and I walked into this mastermind called War Room, and there's 300 other business owners that 80% of them are my ideal partner. And so I remember that just being like, whoa, dude, like, goggles on, stuck here. I think this is all that is out there for me. To then, again, even thinking about it, it was an invite, dude. I had a friend that reached out and said, hey, I got a guest pass. Do you want to come tend? Maybe that's why I invite and bring so many people to masterminds and events and take care of them, right? Because that was the game changer for me. And I walked into that room and I left with more new partnerships than I had in the current business that I was running, right? And that was a big unlock. And then as you identify, and you know as well as I do, there's more of those everywhere now than anything. But I think that, again, for listeners or people that are early on and they're building their business, they're wanting to go to another level, like, are you wearing the goggles? Are you stuck in a place that you're not looking at these other pockets? And then even so, when you see these other pockets, at what point, at what sacrifice and what investment are you willing to make? That mastermind for me was a $40,000 investment for a 3-event mastermind a year. And I remember being like, wow, like, that is crazy. Those guys get $40,000 from me. You know what I mean? But then as I started doing the math, I was like, oh my gosh, that's one partnership. I just walked in the door and I left with 7. I'm up 6 after I paid for the one thing. And so then it started to connect, right? Where it's like, man, now I just need to be more. And then I'll also say the other thing I'll say to that I think was a big unlock was, normally behind text messages, behind phone calls, dude, there's something different about getting belly to belly, face to face in a room, dude. Like, there's just something more. You and I as an example, like, we're very close, but sitting in the desert, having the time with you, we bonded even more. And I just think there's a lot more that you can uncover, that you can feel, and that you support in each other in a deeper way to get together in person. And those masterminds were definitely a big unlock, taking me from 8-figure to 9-figure for sure.
If you had to rebuild Prime from 0 today, what would you do differently, or what would you do first in the first 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not wearing any goggles. I tell you that, right? Yeah. So it's like, I'm wide-eyed, I'm looking around, right? I think that's the first thing. I also would remind myself and be more confident and have belief in what it was in the product and service that I was offering, right? I think at times I questioned, like, the level of the product or the level of the service or the level of the value that I was giving, which I don't encourage anybody to not have that. You need to have that, because if you do have that to some extent, that's what drives you to want to make it better, right? But I think if I could go back, I think I would appreciate more of the value of what it is that I offered. I mean, for us specifically, entrepreneurship is hard, and a lot of people are not thinking about the tax benefits that are available to them with their business. And I knew early on, because of some personal things I went through, how big of a deal that could be for the average person to show them a 2%, 5%, 10% reduction in taxes by having this service. But I don't think I gave it the credit that I should have early on to give myself the confidence that I needed to expedite walking into partnerships and scaling faster. right? I also will then come say, I think there's something to be said with scaling over a period of time. I think that hockey stick sounds fun. That hockey stick sounds exciting. That hockey stick sounds like great, but that hockey stick breaks shit. That hockey stick, you when you pile thousands of customers and you're only built to serve hundreds, you're going to run into some redundancies that are going to hurt and harm in how that you do things. And so I think that, other than naturally wanting to go faster just inherently to get where we were at, I guess I'm kind of grateful that we did it in the stages that we did to try to create the best perfection that we could on our product and service, right? But yeah.
Most founders are obsessed with acquisition naturally, right? Acquisition is everything in a company. And so ads, funnels, cold outreach, your model, you're probably the only person in the room you're probably the only person in the room that has the strategy, and I don't want to call it a strategy because it sounds transactional, but it is a strategy. It's how you acquire customers. You just do it in a really nice way. Your model is built entirely on relationships alone, right? If someone listening wanted to build a business like you've built, Steve, right? So someone's like, I'm throwing everything out the window. I'm not going to run the ads. I'm not going to email anyone. I'm just going to go and do this through humans, and I'm going to do it through relationships, and I'm going to ask Steve because Steve's the best at doing it. Where do they start? Like, how do you get into this game?
I think the thing that I would look at is like, what is the product that you have, right? Again, like this is an interesting thing for me is I didn't understand the power of the product that I had in the beginning when I set out on this journey. Like, if you really think about it, dude, like forming entities, filing taxes, it's the most unsexy, boring business out there, right? Like, there's like, again, especially with my background and my lack of, educational background and all of those things. Like, I feel like, again, dude, the big man gave me opportunity of a product and service that had opportunity to, let's just use the word agnostic, right? Like I had the ability to spread it in a lot of different ways when I didn't understand how valuable that was to be also, let's call it non-conflicting, non-competitive, right? It was straight a value add into whatever that is. So that's the first thing that I'd ask you to look at and think about is like, what's the product you have and what's the market share of where it can go, right? Most products, good news is there's a lot of opportunity that's out there, but that's the first thing I was thinking of. The second thing is, if you want to do it, you gotta try to continue to work on that muscle of finding ways of adding more value than you take, right? Like in a transactional world and the way people think and the way people operate. I know this is the way for me, right? Where it's like, and I'll use you as the example again, dude. It's like the way you've showed up for me, the way you make intros, the way, like, I know there's not anything I can't text you that you won't do whatever it takes to find a solution and an answer for me in that. And in return, I just play full out with you as well. So I think that if you're just getting started, like, go get in the right rooms, go get uncomfortable in those rooms. Like I'm getting ready to join a new group right now called Tiger 21. And I'm sitting in that room, dude, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm uncomfortable, dude. These guys are big boys. I mean, CEOs of $14 billion a year businesses, right? Like they're the big dogs, and I'm uncomfortable. And I feel like, how do I even relate? How do I even have a conversation about financials or numbers or wealth or legacy or all that kind of stuff when it's like I still feel like I'm over here in my rowboat, dude, and these guys have like, 5 motors on the back of their yachts, right? Like, but then I sit in it and I'm like, oh shit, I'm in the right room. This is where I need to be, right? Like what I can do is I can navigate conversation. Maybe that's another thing, dude. It's your superpower as well, Blau. Like, be personable. Just listen. Just when you get there, just listen. Listen with intent. Like listen with actually the desire and the concept of truly caring of what's being said. Listen. That's the key word there. Listen. So many people just naturally want to talk and they want to tell their story and they want their story to be heard. It's like, dude, if you're just getting started and getting going, shut up and listen. Like, just shut up and listen and take notes and take radical notes. Leave conversations. The minute you leave conversations and you learn 3 things, grab your phone and leave a voice note for yourself explaining the 3 things that you learned. And then when you get home at night, put it somewhere else and then do something with it within 30 days. Like I think we live in a day and age where like it's information overload and you can go everywhere and get all these small clips, long clips, short clips. There's all these things where it's like, listen. And then for those relationships that you want to build, and this is that concept to fall back to the win by giving. And again, if I understood it at the level I know now, I would have done this so much sooner. When you listen, you hear things, and you hear things about that other individual that are arguably the most important. That's why I call them the heart spark moment. If you listen long enough in that conversation, they're going to share with you the things that are the most important to them. They're going to speak up. They're going to get louder. They're going to lean in. You're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, like this is the pocket for this guy." Like for me, again, you do it long enough, you're going to eventually get to my kiddos, and you're going to hear I'm the proudest dad in the world, and I'm the first dad on the soccer field or the lacrosse field. Like I'm there committed. And it's like, man, if you can notate that and acknowledge me as we build a relationship around what you heard was the most important thing for me, maybe even a step further, and find a way to serve me around that. Like, dude, you're going to get a lot more of me a lot faster than you would if it was, you telling me your story about the business you're building and you telling me, "Hey, Steve, can I pick your brain and take you to coffee?" You know what I mean? Like it doesn't work like that. The universe doesn't work like that. High level people, you got to find a way to separate yourself and to do something different. So yeah, again, just to summarize, it's listen more than you talk, get yourself in uncomfortable rooms, invest the dollars and resources. I mean, the money that I put on my credit card when I was starting the business, between masterminds and my office and the cubicles that I was buying and everything I needed to do to grow it, like you got to take risk. Like, I'm sorry, but you're going to take risk and you got to put yourself in the spot. But remember, taking risk and putting yourself in the spot with the vulnerability of the investment that you made, that's going to hopefully drive the behavior for you to obsess on it, as opposed to being, just kind of back in not making moves, right? You got to make moves that make you uncomfortable, because then your work ethic will follow. And then just remember time. Time is a hard thing, but it's the beautiful thing. If you stay in it long enough and you let the time horizon just continue to be there, and you move and you inch along and you inch forward, eventually you'll look back on that freaking game board and you're like, "Oh shit, like I've climbed through some stuff," right? I'm being long-winded there, but I think those would be the thing.
No, I think you summarized them well.
Yeah.
And I think those are the ones most overlooked,
Mm.
and the ones that you're actually most in control of, funnily enough. Like when you look at the ones that you've just said, like you're fully in control of them. Like that's the variable that you as a business owner can control.
Wow.
You can go and put yourself into a room where you feel uncomfortable. Only you can do that. You have to stay in the game long enough. Only you can do that, and so I've not had them described like that on the show before, so I think it's great, and those are core principles of mine as well. A lot of what you do is centered around trust as well, right? Like when you start to become not reliant on YouTube and Google and Meta, right? You don't really need to have a relationship with those guys. They don't really need to trust you. You don't really well, you do need to trust them to keep paying them and for them to keep serving you. But trust is a very big part of what you do, Steve. You're putting your name on the line constantly, right? These are people whose hands you shake, you look in the eye, you make commitments to, and you do it at scale. So I have a two-part question. Trust is easy to talk about and very hard to build. And so I think a lot of what you described is like a phase one to the approach on how to do it, right? It's how do you get the opportunities to grow your business in this way, is what we just covered. The second thing is just being able to execute and implement the trust that people have given you for a long period of time. And trust is the hardest thing to build and the easiest thing to lose. What have you done specifically at Prime to build trust with your clients, with your team, with your partners, and as the company has grown?
I think staying as consistent as you can, around that has been a big thing for me. Again, not that I can get to every relationship the way that I want every day, all day, but I think having a level of consistency. Also, like, I don't know how to explain this, because I think all of us have good intentions, and all of us have, there's a Luke Bryan song, right, where he talks about, you know what I mean? Like, people are good, right? Like, most of us are good. People are good. They have the right intention, but I just think that there's something also to be said to being able to earn that trust, maintain that trust, and authenticity that ties back to it, to where it just feels like it's natural, right? Like I think there's like the spot when it starts to become like, oh, like what you're in it for something else, or there's something else that you want from it, right? Or it just totally kills it and sends it in the wrong direction. And so I think if you can constantly have this authenticity aspect of it with the relationships that you're building, and people fulfill the sincere in you, which, by the way, it's like there's no other way to have that delivered than actually being that. You know, like the intuitiveness of with who we are and with what we are. It's like we're looking for bullshit. We're smelling bullshit. We're always, you know what I mean? It's like it's always something that you're just like why and what, and is that real, and why and what is that real? And again, like I think, again, for me, and I'm not perfect, by the way, like there's times where I fall short, and there's times where I become transactional, and there's times where I can't do the giving with everybody that I'd like to do at the level that I feel like my heart's telling me to do it. But a core driver that I have is I know that the word fake will never be used in a sentence when people talk about me. You know, and I think that ties back to the trust, dude. It's like I think also trust ties into actions. Like your actions will show it. You know what I mean? The people both in what you do and the people around you, just watch their actions long enough, and those actions will be there. I'll also say that, like, I think once you start getting momentum of hearing people talk positive of you, and you kind of are this light, or you can show up at events and you can kind of be the guy. Like you're the same way, man. Like there's so many people I've watched at masterminds when we show up. It's like hanging around with Bilal, even though you may not be waking up on time the next morning. Like you have the best time ever. People are free. They enjoy. They know that, like, authentic Bilal is there, and I can go have a real genuine conversation about anything that I want to. I can talk about my hardships in my life. I can talk about success in business. I could talk about a soccer game, right? Like whatever it is, you're going to meet them with where they're at. And I think you accept that, and you don't force the direction of where maybe you want to take it. Again, back to doing more listening. And I think all of those things added together, and all those through lines are what both develop the trust and maintain the trust.
How do you keep track of all your relationships, Steve?
I don't. I fail. I fall short. I again, like I said, there's so many thoughts that run through my mind. It's so often, and I feel like I'm not doing it all the time the way that I feel like I know that I could or should. Fully transparent, I actually lost. This was really hard. About 4 months ago, I lost 6,000 contacts.
I remember you saying this.
More than half of my contacts, dude. Like, again, remember, like, a lot of your guys' way of building your business is through, you know, meta and paid ads and the things that you mentioned, right? Like mine are my relationships. And to wake one morning and to know that the majority of my people on my phone are gone, like gone. They're not, they like, we imported a support email, and I didn't know that my contacts were tied to that support email, and they went away. And I really struggled with it. But what I've also found in that, again, is I found some beauty in it, where it was like, what am I willing to do to go find the relationships that I lost? Right? It's interesting, right? When you know you got somebody in your phone that's no longer there, what are you willing to do to go get the contact for that person? And that'll tell you a lot, you know, who that person is and what that person means to you. And then on the reverse, the way that the communication and the outreach for other people back to me to resave them came in, that helped me, right? But no, man, I fall short a lot. I will tell you that I'm trying to continue to empower my team around me to help carry that load with me. I've hired this last year. Her name is Stacy. I call her my love bomber. That's her title. You know, she's paid at the company very well, and we have an incredible relationship. She's a female version of me, but a female version that also knows how to execute. So I can have an idea, I can have a thought, and she runs that thing with me all the way through. And so I think, knowing that I want to get to more people and keep my relationships going, I have her, you know, right out in front of my office here. And we're constantly loving on our partnerships, our relationships, our employees. It's another big thing we've done around here, dude, is like we have more company events and more potlucks and more dinners and more celebrations and more anniversaries. I mean, I feel like it's every day I look at my calendar and I got 2 to 5 people that I'm giving an anniversary basket to, right? But again, it's like one of my favorite moments, man. We go upstairs. I have the 2 questions I ask. It's like, what's the one thing that, like, you feel like is your staple moment of being at Prime and working here at this point? Share that. And then 2, I have their leaders and their managers reciprocate the love on them, dude. And it's like every single time the anniversary meetings, every single person in the room is crying because of the connections and the things that are shared, right? And it's like, for me, not only, again, I said this earlier, but when you have somebody for a year, 2 years, 5 years, I mean, I gave out multiple 8 and 9 year anniversaries last week. People that have worked for me for 9 years of their life, they've showed up for 8 to 10 hours a day rowing this thing in this direction that we're going. And it's like, when you really think about it in a humbling way, instead of looking at it like, oh, it's your job and I paid you for your job and, love you, mean it, but thank me later because I gave you a good job, right? I think it's easy to fall into that narrative and to fall into with what that is. I think I really try to keep myself humble in that sense. And it's like, we leave that meeting, how many more of us, maybe back to your even trust point with internally in the business, like we all just grew a little bit because we learned things about each other that we didn't know. And there's something to be said about vulnerability. There's something to be said about vulnerability and true connection where people feel safe that they can have that vulnerability and share that moment. And it's a big part. When you walk through my office and you see how my company and my team interact, it's not a coworker sitting at a desk with a number on their cubicle and they're just another, person in the herd. They're just another tagged person in the business. Like, people hug, people hang out outside the office. People are some of their best friends outside the office and in the office. Like, that culture of that family environment that I've had from the beginning with my older brother, my younger brother, and my mom, I'm really proud of the business at this size it's been able to continue to carry.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so for existing CEOs that are at your scale too, and not maybe, there's a wide range, I think, of people that listen to the show, both new entrepreneurs, existing entrepreneurs, very successful entrepreneurs. For 9-figure entrepreneurs, Steve, what advice do you have to them in terms of creating the culture for their company? Because what you described is not easy to find. It's actually not very conventional. I think it will be over time as people's expectations change. I think the expectations of people are now changing as we evolve. Like what our parents were happy to do, we're not as happy to do, and what our kids are going to be happy to do isn't going to be as much as what we're happy to do.
Right.
And so when, I'm a CEO with a similar company size like yours, what advice do you have for me, Steve? How do I have a better culture in my organization? Maybe speak just directly to me.
Yeah.
How can Bilal be better?
Yeah. I think one, it's going to be hard to speak to you because you're already incredible, dude. Like, I know a lot of the things I talk about or I preach of what it is. You do things 10 times better than I do. I know it because I've been on the receiving end of it and I felt it. And there's very strong intentionality and very strong authenticity about you. I mean, my children still wear their soccer jerseys as some of their proudest shirts that they wear around the house. So you got your.
I hope they know that we're top of the table, and we're very likely to win the league this year, and we're in 3 other competitions. Steve, just make sure they know that.
I see what you're doing there. Where you got my kids running around at their school bragging off your soccer team. I got it.
This is how you build the next generation.
That's it, right? You just get them jerseys, custom jerseys with their names. Now, man, what I would say, and maybe this can relate to you too, but to also speak to, other people out there is like, I have a massive desire to know that I'm growing my financial wealth and the success of the business, but that my heart beats along the way and I have joy. I've met a lot of people that are very wealthy and I don't want to judge them, but I struggle to see happiness in them. I struggle to see true joy when you can start having the things and money doesn't become an obstacle anymore of a thing. It's more of what's the next bigger thing that I can buy, do, travel, have. And then I think you can lose track. You can lose track of like what the true epicenter of this thing came from is. And so, maybe encourage like, just looking in the mirror and looking at yourself and asking yourself like, where's my give back? Where's my heartbeat? Like, how do I fill my heart and my wallet along the way? And how do I get to a spot? Because if you're running a business that's 9 figures and you have a decent net profit or a decent EBITDA, you're the 1% of the 1%. And in doing that, you then have an obligation and a responsibility to put some of those financial dollars back in different ways that are both to your people, that are to your partners and friends, that are to charities. There's so many additional components. And again, I'm sure a lot of people do it and a lot of people support those things, but I also know there's a lot of people that don't. And a lot of people are stingy and they just have tens of thousands of millions of dollars sitting in a bank account when they can make a difference in some way. So it's it's kind of like, venture out, find that feeling, find that joy, find that whatever that thing is that ties to you and what fills your heart from however you were raised, or what that meaning can be to you to stay in a meaningful way. Because in business, again, in the sharkish move of business, in the growth of business, I think, again, man, people lose track. And fast forward to your last breath and ask yourself, what do you want people saying about you? I think about it a lot, man, and I'm hoping and I'm praying that when that day comes for me, dude, like whatever room that funeral's in or wherever that celebration is, dude, everybody can't fit. They're trying to find a TV to put out in the hallway, dude, because people are there saying, hey, like, I learned something from this guy. And so I think that if that's the driver, especially if you have kids and they're watching and you want to do it the right way, dude, I fully believe, and I'm a walking product and example of this, that, again, God, karma, and the universe will bless you with more than you know what to do with. And it's your obligation and responsibility to continue to give back.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I see it a lot with the richest people I know are the most unhappy people I know, funnily enough, for the most part. And so it would be, I don't know if do you recommend, like, I think that was an interesting exercise that you just said just now, like fast forward to your deathbed or fast forward to your funeral, and what do you want to be said about you that's true? And a great exercise, and it's a little bit morbid, but I know you'll like it because we're wired the same way. But I actually wrote out my obituary, and I was like, what do I want people to say about me? What do I want to be true about how I live my life? And then I printed it out and I read it every day. And now everything that I do every single day is geared towards that. And it is like a little bit, people might hear that and be like, all right, that's a little bit depressing. But actually for me, it keeps me really laser focused on, I want to do more philanthropy. Did I do any philanthropy today? Or did I make a decision that helps that? And so I think there's a couple of good exercises that really help, and the world just becomes a better place, right? Like it's what you said with the karmic side of it. You just put something into the universe, and it goes and it makes this person happy, and then they go into their household and make their rest of their family happy, and then they go out, and it's just this like knock-on effect that you have, and at some point you just can't quantify it. But if enough people are just doing this at scale, it's like you just already know that the world is just going to be just a more beautiful place. People are going to be happier by default because people are being kinder to one another and making money along the way, because what you've proved, Steve, it's like you're not a non-profit, man, so like, when people hear the Win by Giving, I think it's like, oh, interesting, is that like a non-profit organization, or like, what does this mean? It's like, no, dude, it's actually a 9-figure company that's whole philosophy is based on this thing, but it can lead you to X, and I think that a lot of people mistake the fact that doing these things results in no money, less time, right? And you are the walking and shining example how that is just completely counterintuitive. I want to close, Steve, with something that we ask every guest on the show, and it's to do with legacy. The fifth quarter, it's basically the moment where the game ends. You're in the locker room, you're in the quiet, the fans have gone home, the performance is over, and what's left is just the truth of what you've built and the game that you've played and how you've played it. And so when the game is over, what do you hope is true about how you played it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. Being somewhat of an athlete in my life, I think about those moments in those locker rooms, right? Specifically after the games, and you're just processing. For me, it was a lot of the things I wish I would have done different, right? Win or loss. What could I have done different? Man, I should have shot that shot different. I should have took that different. I should have showed up different. I should have meditated the night before. I should have ate my pasta like my coach told me and got my carbs, right? But for me, dude, so much of it ties back to my children. I got 3 beautiful little boys, 2 from my first marriage, a little 7-month-old from my current relationship, and knowing that they're walking into a far more fortunate life than I had growing up. What I pray, what I hope, and what will give me so much satisfaction, and I got a lot of work to do on this, right? Because there's obstacles in how I need to design this, especially not having my children full time and only having them part time, at least with my first 2 kids, is I want them to, one, understand anything is possible, that they can truly go on and do anything that they put their mind and heart to. And if they want to look at some of their dad's success of what their dad's business is or where it went and the people that we helped along the way, that can attest to it and that can back them. The second piece, and the most important, and I have a recent example of this maybe I can share really quick that kind of brings this full circle. We were at Legoland 2 weeks ago, and my 9-year-old, we were playing one of the games where you win the giant stuffed animals, and he won the giant stuffed animal, which is if you've played any of those games, not very many people win those stuffed animals on purpose. And behind us, there was a little boy in a wheelchair, and the boy's asking Nolan, like, how did you win it? How did you throw the ball on the back of the backboard to land in the bucket to win the thing? And he just wants to know what the strategy was. And I remember hearing Nolan Nolan tried to tell him, and then we left. And about 30 minutes later, Nolan says, Dad, I wonder if that little boy won that stuffed animal. And if he didn't, I want to give him mine. And we went and walked throughout the whole park, spent about 30 minutes.
Wow.
We tracked down this little boy in this wheelchair, and I watched my 9-year-old son hand this little handicapped boy this stuffed animal. And that was a moment that I thought, like, okay, even though I know that I haven't been true to, whether it was saving my marriage or whatever that was in that moment, I know that my children, having this most fortunate life in their own way, they're watching this concept of this win by giving and how you add more value than you take, and they're putting it to action. And that, for me, when it comes to legacy, is I just want to just hear and watch and witness and know wherever I watch from them after this life is over and that quarter ends, or that fifth quarter's out, that my kids continue to carry on giving more than they take, adding more value than they take, and just opening hearts along the way.
That's so beautiful. And if you weren't sure if he was your son or not, I think that moment confirms it, right? What a beautiful thing. Steve, I want to finish off with your favorite win by giving story for yourself personally. I want this to be like a case study or an example. And you've done a lot, and so you can take a minute to think about it. We'll edit so it seems like you came up with it straight away.
Yeah.
Who you did it for?
Yeah.
Why you did it?
Wow.
What made you want to do it for them? Their reaction, and how your relationship with that person changed, either personally, in business, whatever, however it evolved.
Yeah.
Because of that moment.
I know right where it is, and it's the one that like gives me the most deepest emotional connection as well. And so I'll tell the backstory, and it's also a way of me honoring this individual, because he means so much to me. I actually got to see him last week, and I haven't seen him in almost 2 years. But the gentleman's name is Randy Garn, and Randy is so much of a massive individual that was in my life, that taught me the concepts, that taught me the philosophies, and didn't just teach me by his words. He showed me by his actions. Randy's talking about his father, telling me, obviously I've learned over the years how important his father is. He has his father has a saying, serve as much as you can to as many as you can, as often as you can, without expecting anything in return. And as I thought about this and knew that this was the most important thing to Randy, in my heart spark moment was I needed to serve Randy around this thing with his father, knowing his father's getting older. And so the idea that I had was, how do I coordinate with his family? I wanted to fly up to Sugar City, Idaho. I wanted to film footage and material in Randy's childhood home, which is where his father lived. And I wanted to have content and material of his father and questions that I asked him that I could gift Randy. Specifically for me, it was on the 1-year anniversary of his father's passing. I wanted to be able to have this unknown bucket of material that Randy had no idea existed that I could give to him. We were really close. Randy called me 2 weeks before, Randy called me and said, hey, sounds like my dad's only got about 2 weeks left. I got to fly up to Sugar City, Idaho and see him. And I remember being so disappointed because I was so close to flying up there. But his cousin just basically said she doesn't think that he's capable of answering the questions and being where he's at. So when Randy called me, I said, hey, dude, this is actually something that I was wanting to do for you. So if you'd allow me, I'd love to grab my buddy's helicopter. Let's jump in the helicopter. Let's fly up there together. And I have this thing I want to do for you, but I now want you to be involved. It's not going to be a surprise. You're going to be involved. And so we grabbed the helicopter. I grabbed my videographer. We flew up there. And what was so beautiful about it, Bilal, even though I didn't get to surprise Randy with it, it worked out so perfect because Randy was able to help participate in the material of the questions that we asked and the things that we filmed that I would have never been able to get out of his dad. His dad sang a song that literally he hasn't sang in 30 years, right? Like there, I would have not known how to get to with what that was. And so not only did we have an incredible time, we put his dad in the helicopter, we flew him up over the city in his childhood home or in his town that he grew up in, but we created this material, and this material ended up being a lot of the material that was used at the funeral that was able to be shared with everybody else, and it lives on. And I have a picture in my phone. I still look at it very often when I think about Randy. I have a picture in my phone of Randy holding his father's hand, sitting in a car, and a little video of him telling him, like, "You got this, Dad. You got this, Dad. You got this, Dad." And like the thought of somebody that I love at the level that I do, to know that inside of my phone I have the last picture that he has with his father alive, it's invaluable, man. It's invaluable. And so, for that, with me and Randy, one, he'll be forever a person I'll roll with forever. And I have now all this material. So at different times, my team or myself will create different things, and I'll send them to Randy in sporadicness, just to remind him not only how incredible his father was, but how incredible his father was to create who he did in Randy, and to kind of keep pushing him on and motivating him and reminding him that he'll see his dad again someday. And so when you think about a gift, when you think about a way to serve somebody, yeah, that took time, that took energy, that took effort, but it was the most enjoyable, as you can even see now, a year later. There's more. This gave me more fulfillment than ever, and it lives on inside of me because of this action. And it's something that I'm grateful and I'm privileged to be able to have the honor to do that for him. And it's one of the most thoughtful ones that I've done so far. That I
yeah,
think
and I
about a
know
lot.
so many of the other stories, man, which are phenomenal too. And I wanted just to pick the one for you that means the most. But I know that I know there's like 5 or 6 just off the top of my head, and people have told me, "Oh, Steve did this thing for me." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, he bought me this guitar from my favorite artist," or he flew in my cousin who was sick, or whatever it might be, man. You've done so many incredible things, Steve, for other people, and you truly deserve all the happiness and the success that you have got in your life, and that you will continue to get. What you've built is remarkable, but how you've built it is, for me, what's truly remarkable and what matters the most. I can't wait to see your company grow even bigger, your impact grow even larger, and just on a personal note, for you and I to create more exceptional memories together, my friend. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for coming in at 6 o'clock in the morning to do this. Thank you for giving us all your time, for sharing your story, for sharing your wisdom. And I look forward to having you on as a guest in a couple of years to hear about Prime's 10x since the last time we spoke, more heart spark moments, and more stories about how you've just lit people up like you do every single day, Steve. So thank you so much. Until next time, this has
Thank
been
you,
the
Blah.
fifth quarter.